Igor Girkin, one of the most prominent pro-Russian mill bloggers and ultranationalists, has been detained in Moscow. Is this part of a crackdown on Russian mill bloggers? And is Ukraine continuing its inexorable march towards Bakhmut? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's July 21st, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. Okay, first, there's actually hasn't been an update on the control map yet, but we'll take a look at the combat map where we're seeing, again, sort of the Ukrainian armed forces continuing to annoy me a little bit because, again, 4 hours ago, they're continuing to report that they've made considerable progress in and around this Robotine, or excuse me, on the road to Bakhmut, so to speak. But we don't actually see the changes manifest in any of the maps. So it's not clear what constitutes success for them. Success may simply be that they launched offensive action. But this map is at least depicting them as having seized the majority of Robotine, which would be actually substantial progress if true. Again, the problem being that it's hard to sometimes vet if this is even actually the case. When we zoom in here, right, you could see that this depicts Ukrainian forces not having even crossed into the main area of Robotine, which is a difference of, at least, I'd say at least 1.5 kilometers. So not small potatoes by any stretch of the imagination. But it would be, again, a good sign for Ukrainian forces who seem to possibly have focused more on piecemealing back Russian defenses and are in all likelihood going to try to push through and break through the main Russian lines that show up outside of Bakhmut, right? That dual trench line system that the Russians have built. Maybe that is what they're trying to do: conserve their forces, make small, meaningful gains piece by piece, hurting Russia and attriting Russia much more than they are being attrited, and then try to break Russia at its main combat lines. But again, you can see Ukrainian forces reporting progress here, reporting progress near Pryutine, and continuing to put pressure on Russian forces outside of Staromayorsk, and likely in an effort to force their withdrawal. When I look at the war mapper, this is from about 23 hours ago. There's reports that Russian or Ukrainian forces are continuing to push and control actually the heights outside of Klitschivka, that this is probably their main target. And you can see that Klitschivka and Kurdyumivka, Ukrainian forces trying to pressure the town from two sides, as well as Kurdyumivka trying to pressure this Russian salient from two sides. Probably, again, part of a larger effort to de-encircle Bakhmut, so to speak. This fighting in the Berkiva Reservoir has been fierce and has been going on for a while, but we haven't really seen any significant progress. This is in contrast to Klitschivka, where Russian forces appear to be steadily forced backwards. But the other big story, right, is, of course, we're going to get to in a minute. I just wanted to let you guys know that on combatvetnews.com today, we are dropping my analysis of the viral Chechen ambush. This is a POV video of Ukrainian aligned Chechen forces ambushing a Russian column. It's apparently pretty wild. So if you want to see that and my twice weekly combat video breakdowns, the only place I can do these uncensored combat video analyses are on combatvetnews.com. So any one of these tiers is going to get you access to the members only content, and it's the best way to support the channel. So check it out, combatvetnews.com, become a member. The card should be up there, link in the description. We'll see you over there. Okay. The other big story is that Igor Girkin, pro-Russian critic and ultra-nationalist, and also worth noting, a former FSB agent, has been detained. And what I find interesting about this is for a couple of reasons. First, Girkin, as a former FSB agent, likely has strong ties to the state. I actually sort of maintained a rumor that he was still an FSB agent and was likely a sort of plant, a sort of controlled, not quite opposition, but a controlled pro-Kremlin voice that the Kremlin could point to as sort of its more extreme cousin, to be like, well, we're in the middle because Girkin's over here on the left and the right is over on the other side. And that may have been true, and maybe that was true at one point, but Girkin has certainly been an increasingly vocal critic of the Putin, the Kremlin, the army top brass. He wanted to see, this is a good summary from Reuters, he's mad at them for not prosecuting the Ukraine war harshly or effectively enough. I think that's a pretty good summary of his criticisms. He's generally wanted to see, like a lot of ultranationalists, he's wanted to see increasing attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure, Russian forces being willing to pull out the stops and engage in activity that would possibly constitute war crimes. In other instances, he wants to see the whole nation brought onto a war footing, a full mobilization, which again, he may have correctly assessed would have worked a year ago. But right now it seems like by piecemealing in their equipment, it's not clear that Russia, even if it had all the manpower it needed, would have all the equipment it would need to equip them into a true army. Right. His wife and lawyer told one outlet that authorities are probably wearied of his criticism of Russia's special military operation, and is likely associated with the crackdown by the Kremlin of anyone who is engaging in dissent against the war effort. This is following the Prigozhin's coup attempt, right, in which he sort of humiliated Russia basically by driving his private army right to the gates of Moscow before being talked down. And so I think the Kremlin is looking at anyone else and trying to nip any future Prigozhins in the bud. And even Prigozhin himself, right, they are trying to take the Wagner group, get them to Africa, get them as far away from Moscow as literally possible. Interestingly enough, fun fact about Girkin, he actually was handed a life sentence in absentia in a Dutch court for allegedly his role in the shooting down of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 over Ukraine 10 years ago. This was a civilian airliner who was targeted with an anti-aircraft weapon, and it's believed that Girkin was the one who gave the order. Again, he was a former FSB agent who likely had a considerable role in the annexation of the Donbas region in Ukraine, which again went down around 10 years ago, and the annexation of Crimea. Right, but Girkin probably was on their radar because he had announced that he had created the Club of Angry Patriots, a sort of political interest group that was, quote, going to save Russia from what he said were the danger of turmoil due to military failures in Ukraine. Asked at the time if he was naive to think he could launch a political movement without the assent of the Kremlin, he said, quote, "I hope you would not call me a naive person." And that's something that we can say about Girkin. Whatever else you may believe, he understands how to curry favor of the Kremlin, and being a highly decorated FSB officer likely means that he understands the political realities of the world. Still, being a public critic of the Kremlin always means that you have to stay on the outs. But who knows? Being detained can mean a lot of things. It could simply mean that you were arrested, brought to jail, bailed out, and told to lay low somewhere for a couple months. May not be the end of the world. So it's tough to say. The Kremlin's a weird place. But he reaches almost 700,000 people on Telegram. And actually just 3 days ago, he launched a tirade, launching personal insults against Putin, urging him to transfer power to someone truly capable and responsible. That seems like a pretty far cry, and almost certainly at odds with Russian laws that now ban any criticism of the special military operation. Again, fascinating that these laws are passed, and Girkin simply believes he's too big to fail and too big to get detained. We're going to see if that's true. I'll be following this story as it breaks, as we learn things. Again, being detained by the Kremlin certainly doesn't always mean that there's a lot of public information about you or what you're doing. Anyway, guys, that is all I had for you for today. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to our Colonel tier members at combatvetnews.com. Thank you to our Lieutenant tier members. I appreciate all you guys. And until next time, I'll see you in the next one.